In July of 2021, three friends accepted an invitation to a billionaire's private island off the northern coast of Russia. They boarded a private jet, smiled for one last selfie, and were never seen again. Their names were Ethan Ward, Maya Collins, and Lena Brooks, three young Americans in their mid-20s who had spent the past year chasing travel deals and documenting hidden luxury getaways on social media. They weren't celebrities, not influencers with millions of followers. Just dreamers, hungry for adventure, the kind who believed every story begins with a risk. For weeks, the trio had been planning their next destination, somewhere exclusive, something no one had ever seen before. Then one afternoon, while sitting in her small apartment in London, Maya received an email that would change everything. It came from a sender named the Volkov Foundation. The message was short, polite, formal, and almost too good to be true. It read, "Dear Ms. Collins, your work exploring remote cultures has caught the attention of our founder, Mr. Viktor Malenkov. He would like to personally invite you and two guests to spend a weekend on his private island estate, an exclusive retreat for creatives and philanthropists." It was signed with a gold emblem, a double-headed eagle surrounded by the words Volkov Island Initiative. At the bottom, a private jet itinerary, already paid for. At first, they thought it was a scam, some kind of marketing trick. But a quick online search revealed something surprising. The Volkov Foundation did exist, at least, according to official listings. And Viktor Malenkov, its founder, was a name that carried weight in European business circles, an oligarch known for funding art museums, humanitarian projects, and ocean conservation. The island itself? Hidden somewhere in the Barents Sea, a region few people visit, and even fewer return from. Within days, Ethan, Maya, and Lena were packing their bags. Three ordinary tourists, ready to spend a weekend in paradise, unaware that they were stepping into a world that didn't forgive mistakes. They boarded a sleek black jet at Heathrow Airport. A flight attendant handed them champagne and a brochure embossed with gold. "Welcome to Volkov Island, a place where dreams meet silence." But here's the part that no one knew then. The man who invited them, Viktor Malenkov, had been erased from every corporate record just 3 weeks earlier. His name was gone from bank listings, trust documents, even property registries. It was as if the world itself was trying to forget he ever existed. And yet, three strangers were already on their way to meet him. If this invitation came to you, would you go? Would you take that risk for the experience of a lifetime, or would you trust your instincts and walk away? Let me know what you do down in the comments. I read every one. If you're the kind of person who believes every mystery deserves an answer, hit that subscribe. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We give voices to those who were silenced, and light to the corners the world forgot. To understand what happened on Volkov Island, you first need to understand the man who owned it. His name was Viktor Malenkov, a billionaire so private that journalists once called him the ghost of the North Sea. Born in St. Petersburg in the early 1970s, Malenkov rose through Russia's chaotic post-Soviet economy with the precision of a chess player. By his mid-30s, he had stakes in shipping, cybersecurity, and oil transport. By 40, he had vanished from public life entirely. He didn't give interviews. He didn't attend Davos or GQ's Men of the Year. But once every few years, his name appeared quietly in the background, a donation here, an art acquisition there, a new shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. To the outside world, Viktor was a philanthropist. But to those who'd worked near him, he was something else. An ex-bodyguard once described him as a man who smiled without moving his eyes. A former accountant said that every time Viktor's name appeared on a contract, another name disappeared. Still, the allure of his wealth was magnetic. His island, a private fortress north of Murmansk, was rumored to host secret art auctions, political meetings, and experiments in deep-sea defense technology. Others whispered darker things. About missing guests, about security teams that never answered questions, about a private dock that never showed up on satellite maps. Officially, it was called Volkov Island, named after his late wife, Irina Volkov. But among locals on the mainland, it had another name, Ostrov Teni, the Island of Shadows. No one really knew what went on behind those glass walls and iron gates. Not the fishermen who saw lights flicker offshore at midnight. Not the employees who signed lifetime non-disclosure agreements before stepping foot there. And certainly not the 3 tourists now flying across the Atlantic, believing they were about to film the adventure of their lives. That summer, Ethan, Maya, and Lena would finally uncover what the world refused to see. And they'd pay the price, in the most brutal way imaginable. At this point, what do you think was really happening on that island? Drop your theory below. I'll be featuring the most interesting ones in the next episode. And if you're new here, make sure to hit subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to see what happens next. On the morning of July 18, 2021, the 3 friends boarded a private jet from Heathrow Airport bound for Murmansk, Russia, the final stop before the island. They were tired, a little anxious, but mostly excited. Maya filmed the entire trip on her camera, the vlogs, the airport coffees, the champagne toast before takeoff. You can still hear her voice in the footage. Here's to Volkov Island. May it be the adventure of a lifetime. In the back of the jet, Ethan texted his sister. Don't worry, we're in good hands. This guy's foundation is legit, Google him. Lena, ever the cautious one, had sent a different kind of message. A screenshot later recovered from her phone read. If I don't text by Sunday, send a search party. I'm serious. She added a laughing emoji. But even in that message, you can feel the unease. After 10 hours in the air, they landed in Murmansk, where a sleek black convoy awaited. 3 SUVs, tinted windows, drivers in suits. No logos. No names. The driver greeted them in perfect English. Welcome to Russia, Miss Maya, Mr. Ethan, Miss Lena. Mr. Malenkov sends his warm regards. They drove for nearly 2 hours before reaching a private helipad near the coast. From there, they boarded a helicopter bound for Volkov Island, a 15-minute flight across the freezing gray expanse of the Barents Sea. From above, the island looked peaceful. An emerald dot surrounded by mist. Long, curved beaches. A mansion carved from steel and glass, glittering against the horizon. The helicopter circled once before descending. And standing there on the landing pad, smiling, dressed in an immaculate white suit, was Viktor Malenkov. He greeted them personally, shaking each of their hands. His voice was calm, deep, deliberate. Welcome to Volkov Island, he said. You are not guests here. You are family. Maya later wrote those words in her travel diary. They'd find it floating, waterlogged, days later. The trio were escorted to a beachfront villa, freshly prepared, stocked with gifts, engraved watches, silk robes, handwritten notes welcoming them home. Every corner of the property had cameras, but they didn't notice at first. It felt luxurious, secure. At 5:10 p.m., the island's security feed captured the 3 entering their villa. They were smiling. Maya was filming. Ethan was carrying the champagne. The staff waved and closed the door behind them. At 7:42 p.m., every single camera on the island, over 40 of them, went black. No power surge. No storm. No technical fault. Just darkness. If you were in their shoes, would you have gone? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Because in the next chapter, the island starts to reveal what it was really hiding. Between 5:10 p.m. and 7:42 p.m., every known record of what happened inside Villa 9 disappears. No sound. No video. No witnesses who claim to have seen a thing. But here's what investigators were able to piece together. At 7:55 p.m., the island's main power grid flickered, just for half a second. The staff assumed it was nothing. By 8:10, a maintenance worker reported hearing what sounded like gunfire echoing from the villa's direction. He told police later, "I thought it was fireworks, or maybe thunder." But there was no storm that night. When security finally checked the villa the next morning, the doors were unlocked. The scene inside was unsettling, too clean. 3 half-finished glasses of red wine sat on the table. The bottle had been knocked slightly off-center, as if someone had stood up suddenly. There was a faint metallic scent, gunpowder, mixed with perfume. On the floor near the couch, they found Maya's camera, lens cracked, still recording when recovered. But the SD card was blank. Wiped completely clean. Ethan's phone was charging on the nightstand, still plugged in, screen glowing faintly. The last text he'd sent was to his sister back in Boston, time-stamped 7:22 p.m. "All good. Crazy rich life out here, we'll call tomorrow." He never called. The island's caretaker told investigators the guests had been seen dining with Malenkov's private staff earlier that evening. But when authorities requested the CCTV footage, it was gone. Deleted remotely. Not corrupted. Not lost. Deleted. And not just from the villa's cameras, but from every server on the island. The Russian Federal Investigative Committee arrived 48 hours later. By then, most of the staff had vanished. No passports left behind. No flight records. It was as if the island itself had been scrubbed clean of human presence. Every file, every hard drive, every timestamp had been overwritten, one investigator later said. "We were looking at the ghost of a crime scene." And then came the strangest detail of all. One person was found alive. A woman, early 30s, wearing a uniform from Malenkov's security team. Discovered 2 miles from the main villa, sitting in a small fishing hut near the shoreline. She was trembling, covered in blood that wasn't her own. When rescuers tried to question her, she didn't speak. She wouldn't look anyone in the eye. For days, all she did was whisper the same sentence over and over. He told them not to open the door. To this day, no one knows what, or who, she meant. The footage, the servers, the staff, all gone. The 3 friends were never seen again. And the only witness left alive, refused to speak. If you're still watching right now, you're the kind of viewer I make these stories for. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, because we've got 6 more parts to this investigation. And trust me, it only gets darker from here. 2 weeks after the disappearances, Russian authorities issued an official statement. The 3 American tourists left Volkhov Island voluntarily on July 19, 2021. No evidence of foul play has been found. That statement came directly from Viktor Malenkov's legal team, before investigators had even finished their initial report. Publicly, he claimed the guests had left early, citing personal reasons. Privately, every staff member who'd been on the island that weekend had signed non-disclosure agreements, and vanished. A few low-level employees were traced to Cyprus, others to Serbia. None of them agreed to speak on record. One anonymous staff member messaged a journalist only once. "If you value your life, stop asking about the island." When investigators finally secured a search warrant for Malenkov's Moscow residence, they discovered something strange. Flight logs showing the 3 Americans had departed the island on July 19, but the flight never existed. The tail number of the private jet led nowhere. The pilot's name was fake. The manifest was digitally fabricated 2 days after their disappearance. Investigators tried to retrieve CCTV footage from the mainland dock where the plane supposedly landed. All 3 servers had been wiped. The hard drives replaced. And every technician who worked that shift had since resigned. It wasn't just a crime scene anymore. It was a cover-up. Then came the first real lead. A fragment of glass found under the villa's master bed. It turned out to be the missing lens from Maya's camera. Forensic analysis revealed a faint fingerprint on the inner rim. When that print was run through the Interpol database, it matched a man named Konstantin Lebedev, a former FSB agent, discharged in 2015 for unauthorized operations abroad. Lebedev was known in intelligence circles as the cleaner. His specialty, removing evidence, erasing trails, making problems disappear. Investigators now had a direct link between an ex-spy and Volkhov Island. It was the break they'd been waiting for. At 4:15 a.m., a Moscow tactical unit moved in on Lebedev's registered apartment. But when they forced open the door, the rooms were empty. No furniture. No clothing. No personal items. Only dust, and a single framed photograph sitting on the floor. It showed 4 people standing on a sunlit terrace overlooking the Barents Sea. Viktor Malenkov. 2 of his security officers. And a man who looked exactly like Konstantin Lebedev. In the background, blurred but visible, were 3 figures sitting at a nearby table. A man and 2 women, raising glasses of wine. Maya. Ethan. Lena. The picture was taken on Volkhov Island. And the timestamp? July 18th, the night they disappeared. To this day, that photograph remains the only verified image of what happened on Volkhov Island. Everything else, erased, rewritten, or denied. If you're still here watching, you're one of the few who won't just scroll past the truth. Hit that subscribe button, because in the next chapter, we follow the trail that exposes who Malenkov really was, and what his island was built for. 2 months after the disappearance, a storm hit the northern Finnish coast, one of the worst in a decade. Fishermen near Oulu, 200 miles from Volkhov Island, reported seeing debris washing ashore. At first, it looked like ordinary wreckage, driftwood, plastic barrels, fragments of metal. Until one of them noticed a suitcase. It was a black Samsonite travel bag, waterlogged, scratched, but still sealed. Inside, a woman's white summer dress, a camera battery, and a torn passport page. The name still visible, Maya Sullivan. Within 24 hours, 2 more suitcases were recovered along the same stretch of coast. One contained men's shirts, travel-sized cologne, and a half-burned notebook. The other, a silk scarf, a silver locket, and something much stranger. A folded piece of parchment paper sealed in plastic, with a message written in trembling ink. The note read, "We didn't come here for money. We came because we thought we could help. If you find this, tell them it wasn't what they told us." Investigators were divided. Some believed it was genuine, a desperate message written in fear before the end. Others suspected it was planted, a distraction to steer the investigation away from something bigger. The handwriting partially matched Maya's, but not entirely. The ink used wasn't common in consumer pens. It was military-grade waterproof ink, typically used by field operatives. That discovery changed everything. If the letter was written by Maya, where did she get access to such material? And if it wasn't her handwriting, then who wanted it to look like it was? Anchor, TV voice, tonight, the families of the missing American tourists are demanding answers. Their tearful mother, they were good people. They just wanted to see the world. Why can't anyone tell us what happened? Ethan's brother, we just want closure. Even if it's the worst news imaginable. The discovery of the suitcases reignited the media frenzy. Headlines flooded Europe. Billionaires' guests lost at sea, or silenced forever. Volkhov Island mystery deepens. Authorities attempted to contain the panic, suggesting the luggage could have drifted from a private charter wreck. But ocean current data showed something else. The direction of drift was away from the island, not toward it. Meaning someone might have deliberately set them afloat. A quiet storm had become a national scandal. Malenkov, once celebrated as a philanthropic recluse, was now called the Island Butcher on Russian social media. Yet he remained silent, hidden behind lawyers, gated compounds, and a wall of power. And then came the line that froze the world. The sea gave back their luggage, but not their truth. It's stories like this that remind us, truth doesn't always wash ashore. If you're still watching, take a second to subscribe. Because what happens in the next chapter finally exposes what was really on that island, and who was watching them long before they arrived. 6 months after the discovery of the suitcases, investigators in Zurich made a breakthrough, one that would shatter everything they thought they knew about Viktor Malenkov. Working alongside Interpol, Swiss cybercrime analysts cracked into one of Malenkov's encrypted financial accounts. Inside, they found offshore transfers to at least 7 shell companies, all registered in different countries, under false directors, using identical patterns of digital encryption. But what truly froze investigators were the guest lists. Each entry was labeled with an alias, followed by a nationality, a date, and a code word. Astra, 19, USA. Vega, 04, Canada. Orion, 33, France. The earliest dated back to 2014. Every name corresponded with a missing persons report, tourists, journalists, and business travelers who had all vanished after attending private invitations to elite retreats across Europe. Malenkov's island wasn't a vacation spot. It was a node, part of something far larger. Some investigators theorized a human trafficking ring disguised as luxury hospitality. Others believed it tied to art theft, stolen masterpieces laundered through fake guests and private auctions. But one internal memo, later leaked, proposed something even darker. A black market for human organs supplied by disappeared high-value guests. The truth, the report concluded, may be a combination of all three. When word reached Moscow that Interpol was closing in, Malenkov didn't wait. On April 2, 2022, his private Gulfstream jet took off from St. Petersburg, bound for Istanbul. But 41 minutes into the flight, just as it crossed the Black Sea, all radar contact vanished. No mayday. No transponder. Just, gone. Wreckage was never found. Some claimed it was shot down. Others whispered that it landed, in secret, at an unregistered airstrip in northern Kazakhstan, where another of his estates once stood. But the most haunting part wasn't his disappearance. It was what investigators found after he was gone. In a data vault beneath one of his Swiss villas, authorities recovered encrypted footage labeled only Project Arcturus. When decrypted, the files showed silent video clips, dozens of faces from security cameras. All strangers. All Western. And all matched to people still listed as missing. The final video in the series was timestamped March 18, 2021, 2 days after Ethan, Maya, and Lena vanished. It showed a man, tall, suited, seen only from behind, shaking hands with an unseen figure on a yacht. The audio was corrupted, but one phrase was faintly audible. The next guests will arrive in September. Authorities shut the investigation down within months, citing international pressure. But even today, deep corners of the internet share rumors that Malenkov didn't die in that flight. That he simply moved his operation elsewhere. Some claim sightings in Cyprus, others say Argentina, and a few swear he's living under a new name in Dubai, still hosting private guests under the guise of exclusive retreats. If that's true, the narrator whispers, then the island wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. If you think Viktor Malenkov escaped justice, drop your theory below. Where do you think he went? And if you want to see what investigators uncovered in the final leaked footage, hit subscribe right now. The last chapter of this story may finally show what the world was never meant to see. Volkhov Island stands silent now. Its villas stripped bare, its cameras disconnected, its airstrip abandoned, just a stretch of cracked concrete swallowed by moss and time. After the international investigation collapsed, Russian authorities declared the island sealed off for environmental restoration. But locals near Murmansk say that some nights, the floodlights still come on. And boats, without registration numbers, still anchor offshore, just before midnight. The world moved on. But for the families of Ethan, Maya, and Lena, time stopped the day they boarded that jet. Their final messages now feel like echoes from another lifetime. Ethan's last text to his sister. "I'll send pictures once we land, this place looks unreal." Lena's joking message to her roommate. "If I disappear, tell Netflix they owe you royalties." And Maya's final social post, time-stamped hours before landing. Some invitations change your life forever. She was right. That single invitation changed everything, for them, for their families, and for every investigator who tried to pull the truth from beneath a mountain of lies. Because beneath the luxury, beneath the wealth, beneath the glossy illusion of privilege and power, was a machine built on deception. A trap disguised as paradise. And so the question remains, what really happened on Volkhov Island? Were they victims of greed? Of power? Or of something the world isn't ready to admit exists? One investigator, speaking anonymously, left behind a note in his final report. It read, "We may never know the whole truth. But the ghosts of Volkhov Island are not gone, they're just waiting to be found." 3 tourists invited to a Russian oligarch's island. Killed hours after landing. And the truth? Still buried beneath the ice. If you made it this far, you're the kind of viewer who values real storytelling, not just headlines. Subscribe now, and join our growing community of truth seekers and story lovers. Because every week, we uncover the dark corners the world tries to forget. And who knows? The next story might be closer than you think.